Aurora is working on some really, really cool things, like on the edge of what's happening in the Polkadot ecosystem right now. And what's happening in the Polkadot ecosystem is that we're shifting the way that we understand what Polkadot is in terms of the resource it produces. So Polkadot produces a resource which is computes finality for parachains that are giving it their blobs, and it says, "Yep, that's valid." So it's this kind of roll-up architecture. You can think. I don't know if there's people that know Polkadot, but it helps to think like basically it's a network of L2s that can talk to each other, and those L2s need compute resource. And up until today, up until recently, really, all these L2s, all these app chains on Polkadot, they, in order to use the Polkadot resource, they would lock up tokens for a 2-year period through a thing called a crowd loan, and that's just a way of saying I'm going to pay the network of Polkadot to use to use that resource for 2 years, and then the protocol after those slots expire, then it renews slots, and chains have to bid for a new slot. Now that's changing a lot, where um, this resource can actually be allocated in a more flexible way. So it's not a 2-year period. It could be just for 10 days. Maybe you have a layer 2 app chain that needs to have finality and will pay for it for just 2 days a month. Maybe it's an app chain that really doesn't need security on a block by block basis, but every sort of time. So a little bit of background here, because what Aura has been building is this thing called Elastic, which is really the first project that's thinking about how we can make this core protocol stuff happening on Polkadot more accessible for developers that can actually deploy their app chains. So without further ado, here's Ura, and thank you so much.
Thanks for the wonderful intro. So let's start the stuff. Yeah, so I'm here with Elastic. So Elastic is basically, I say always, we're a Blockspace marketplace, and then nobody understands what that is. So I try to explain it like this, right? You have the blockchain, right? You can think of it as a giant decentralized computer. And what this computer is made of is a bunch of processors, right? You can use these processors on Polkadot to build new computers on top of it, right? A bit hard to comprehend if you're not from the Polkadot ecosystem, but essentially what cores facilitate is basically you can use it to run any sorts of computation. So Polkadot 2.0, what it is, right? So we are moving the concept from Polkadot 1 to Polkadot 2.0. And before we had slot auctions, right? So let's take a look at it. Why is it not moving? Oh, damn. Does anybody know how to operate this? Exit and then present again. Yeah, okay, nice. So, how did basically bidding mechanisms kind of feel until now? So you had basically any app chain or any para chain, we call it, in the Polkadot ecosystem that wanted to develop on top of Polkadot had to go through a huge bidding mechanisms where people would bid over time, and you would have these elaborate auctions that would go on for about a month, I think. And then one would win this auction and would get their slot on the relay chain for basically 2 years. So that's the essential idea of how it was. But now we're basically changing that. I mean, Polkadot is changing to selling blocks, selling cores on a month by month basis. Okay, what can we do this when we have this interesting cores? So this is how kind of the cores will be sold. So you have basically, this is kind of the website we built to showcase how the pricing mechanics will differ. So at the start, you have the period to renew your core. So every basically each month you renew your core or buy a new one. So there is like basically a drop off, like Dutch auction drop off from a really high price, and then you go down. But what happens when you buy a core? So we at Elastic basically want to do that somebody can buy a core, but then split it, interlace it, do some interesting things with it, and provide it off to newer developers. So instead, so you can think about like a normal processor, and then you can have multiple processes on the same processor, right? But then somebody needs to sell off those things, right? So what do we do at Elastic? At this hackathon, we wanted to basically create a proof of concept with Polkadot and Moonbeam to basically have to introduce back the English auctions. So English auctions is basically selling from bottom to up. So you bid more, you bid more, who bids, you bid, like that. So the core concept was to implement back the English style auction, and then we would integrate Moonbeam, Moonriver, and you would have a seamless connection via XEM, cross-chain mechanism protocol. So how would it work? So you have dual UI compatibility. With Polkadot, you have Polkadot accounts and Ethereum accounts. Then the smart contracts were developed with Foundry. And we have the whole cross-chain integration interaction going on. So let me explain this mechanism a bit further on here. So you have the core resource, which is happening on the relay chain. Then we have Elastic, which is basically here would be the main chain would be the core time chain. So the core time chain is, you have everything there from it's the core chain that interacts with the relay chain, and there you have all the storage of the cores, who owns what, you can buy things there and stuff like that. However, because it is a very sensitive chain, we cannot deploy contracts on top of it, right? So for that, we had to integrate some other chain where we could deploy our contracts on. And for this hackathon, for proof of concept, and we're probably moving onward with that, we choose Moonbeam. So how would it work? Basically, somebody would buy cores on the core time chain. Then they would be able to auction them off on the Moonbeam. And via XEM, this interaction would work. So yeah, basically, somebody would acquire a core, would create an auction on the other chain, and then the whole transaction execution would happen. So let's look at the website things, how this would work. So we have our Elastic website here. You can check it out. Now we're only on testnet. So let's launch it. And then it takes some time because the internet is really bad. So as you can see here, the sale has ended. And for some reason, somebody keeps buying all the cores on the Rococo testnet. I don't know who. Anyways, all cores are sold out, so we cannot demonstrate how the bidding mechanism looks like. But if we go to my cores, we can see our lovely cores. So there's like more info about them. And we could just transfer it, assign it, interlace it. Somebody, actually, there are some lovely guys who are working on the on splitting of core time, and they're integrating Elastic UI for the Polkadot Encode hackathon. Anyways, let's go on to what we've developed. Let's see. So this is our lovely app that we developed for the purposes of this hackathon. It's not integrated yet on our main UI. So essentially here you're able to buy Blockspace. Not buy Blockspace, but auction off the Blockspace. So somebody would basically deploy here the Blockspace. The Blockspace is represented as an NFT. So this is just basically a marketplace for auctioning off NFTs. And it's connected to Moonbase Alpha. And so here we could place a bid essentially for this NFT. Let's see. And it wasn't working. Okay. So, oh yeah, transaction successful. Cool. Nice. Yeah, so it allows you to basically create the different, so you can create an auction and just get your NFT address and stuff like that. What's really cool about this is that you basically can change one line, and instead of transferring an NFT, we could essentially transfer a core. So thank you very much, and I invite you to see Elastic and maybe contribute to it, and yeah, see you there on the repo.